In the meantime, SpaceX has become more than just a provider of rocket launches. More than half of its annual revenue comes from the mega internet satellite constellation Starlink. They are an integral part of the military-industrial complex and have a rapidly growing customer base of over 6 million. In addition, Starlink is currently being used in several geopolitically charged regions of the world. Not to mention that more and more airlines and shipping companies are relying on this system. The global outage of Starlink on the 23rd of July 2025 was an event that briefly threw the world off balance. Stay tuned, because we will not only analyze what happened, but also who might be behind it and why this is important for the future. Recently, such headlines made their way through the media. Musk's Starlink suffers hours-long outage after launch of T-Mobile satellite service. This news was widely covered in the media. Take a look at how different the reporting is. Let's take a closer look at this story based on the Reuters article from the 25th July 2025. The Starlink outage began on the 23rd of July 2025 at 9 p.m. Central European Summer Time and lasted about 2.5 hours. According to Reuters, the outage was caused by an internal software issue that crippled parts of the core network. Michael Nichols, Vice President of Starlink Engineering at SpaceX, apologized and promised to find the cause. Elon Musk himself wrote on X an apology for the outage. SpaceX will fix the cause to ensure that it doesn't happen again. 61,000 reports were received by Down Detector. The situation was especially dramatic in the Ukraine, where Starlink is essential for military communication and drone operations. Nowhere else is the dependence on this service as great and the consequences as far-reaching as here. The commander of the Ukrainian drone forces, Robert Brovdy, reported that the service had failed along the entire front line. This forced him to carry out combat missions without video transmission and reconnaissance. An anonymous drone commander confirmed that several operations had to be postponed. Experts call this failure unusual and speculate about possible causes, a faulty software update, or even a cyber attack. Gregory Falco from Cornell University compared it to the CrowdStrike incident last year that crippled millions of Windows devices. Additionally, Starlink is facing a major step. The partnership with T-Mobile brought on the 23rd of July the T-Satellite service, which enables emergency text messages via more than 650 satellites. So this outage could very well be related to the network adjustments. But let's dig deeper. Who might have an interest in disrupting Starlink? At the latest, since SpaceX signed multi-billion-dollar contracts with the Pentagon and US intelligence agencies through Starshield, a military offshoot of Starlink, the company has become a strategic player. That makes it a target. Let's take a look now at the tense geopolitical situations in which Starlink is involved. Of course, the following list is neither complete, nor am I trying to imply anything about the parties mentioned. It's just important to me that we understand Starlink is not just your average internet provider. According to reports from the Associated Press, China is conducting research on lasers and sabotage independently, as reported by the Associated Press, and has provided support according to these reports. However, a complete outage could also disrupt Russian operations that indirectly rely on the network, which makes the situation ambiguous. To put it more mildly, experts speculate that Moscow is instead relying on cyber attacks or jammers to create local outages. Iran sees US-dominated technology as a threat to its interests. SpaceX has once again activated Starlink over the country against the will of the Iranian government, which Tehran might perceive as a provocation. An attack could be a signal of wanting to regain control over the airspace. Cartels in Southeast Asia and other regions of the world are using Starlink for their criminal activities, as Senator Maggie Hassan recently denounced. A disruption could interfere with their activities, but it could also be an attempt to pressure Starlink SpaceX to restrict their services. Even allies could be suspicious. Countries like Germany or France, which rely on their own satellite systems, could see Musk's growing influence as a threat to their sovereignty. A failure could be a warning sign to reduce dependence on SpaceX. In theory, there are also parties in the private sector and within the US who would like to see Starlink fail. Competitors like Amazon with Project Kuiper or OneWeb could benefit from a loss of trust. But who and how, I'll leave to your own imagination. Just because someone has a motive doesn't mean they'll actually do something. As I mentioned before, SpaceX is now a player on the geopolitical chessboard of our planet. Michael Nichols' explanation that the failure was caused by the malfunction of critical internal software services could mean anything, from an unfortunate coincidence to a covert attack. It may have only been 2.5 hours, but for the generals who rely on Starlink, it was probably a wake-up call. Not everything is always what it seems. Stay skeptical. Before we wrap up, let's take a look at Starshield, the military arm of SpaceX. Starshield is no coincidence, but rather a response to the growing demand for secure communication and surveillance systems. With contracts worth billions like the $1.8 billion deal with the National Reconnaissance Office, Starshield is supposed to create a fleet of spy satellites that can continuously monitor almost every point on Earth.